Book Talk begins at 8 minutes and 23 seconds. Welcome to CraftLit, the podcast for crafters who love books. My name is Heather Ordover, and I'm podcasting from where the Delaware River meets the Old York Road, New Hope, Pennsylvania. Episode 622, Ninnies. This episode of CraftLit is brought to you by its listeners. Well, hello, how are you? I'm still tired. Yeah, so there's that. But I am also very, very overwhelmed. Listener Irina sent me a package. So we did the bookmarks in July, Christmas in July bookmark exchange. And I received a beautiful bookmark from Susan and Two Steps' sister. Just extraordinary work. And then, as if that wasn't enough, a package from Irina came with the coolest bookmarks. If you looked at my Instagram, you saw these things. They are kind of, it looks holographic. And I said bonus points for anybody who can figure out how Irina did it, because thank goodness she told me she's a physics professor in optics. And this is a trick. She said, take a pan of water and put clear nail polish, like a drop of it, in the top of the water and let it kind of spread out. And then she put black paper, like construction paper or tagboard paper, on the top of it to get a print. And it is extraordinary. So that was cool enough. But then there's also this amazing, like, it made my kids gasp. And they've been around knitting and crocheting their whole entire lives. This thing is extraordinary. It's an owl in the center of a doily, and it is such a perfect owl. But that wasn't enough. Back a couple of years ago, I think it was during the Count of Monte Cristo, we hit episode 500. And Irina had been working on a bag which is going to the beach with me. It is a crocheted bag with 500 little squares and like a temperature blanket that people were doing at the beginning of the pandemic, where every temperature zone or temperature range, 30 to 40 degrees was a color blue and 40 to 50 degrees was a color yellow. And people were tracking temperatures over the course of a year. Same kind of an idea, except each book is a different color on the bag. So I can tell some of the books by how many episodes there were and counting how many squares there are. And each book that we've done on the podcast is represented by a square. I was in tears. Aaron was with me when I opened the package, and he was absolutely blown away as well. So, Irina, thank you so much. I have bedspread that you guys crocheted that Tara Worster got everybody working on back when we were in Virginia. And then this, it's just overwhelming. So thank you very, very much. So we are gearing up to go to the beach. So I haven't had a whole lot of brain space for doing much else, but I did want to share with you a set of videos done by a girl on YouTube. Her handle is Uniquely Madison. I'm assuming that most people who follow Bernadette Banner or Abby Cox probably had this pop up in their feed as well. But in case you didn't, she did, I think it's 2 parts for women and at least 1 part so far for men. She did videos of what people were wearing for realsies in the 1920s. And I thought I'd seen a lot. When I was at UCLA, I worked at the film and television library, which means we not only had all of the theater books and the scripts, we also had the video archives. And so I've seen a lot of old movies and kind of obscure ones, like pre-Hays Code movies where there was real, actually very clear sex going on and women looking like they hadn't met an undergarment before. And not just Jean Harlow, other ones too. So it was a real surprise to me to see the videos that Madison collected. I remember feeling very privileged when I was at UCLA that some of the collections that we got a chance to look at were films made by African Americans for African American dissemination around the country. And it was, like Busby Berkeley style choreographed dances and really fun stuff. And I kind of started to think that maybe I had imagined it all, but I didn't. And she found the film footage, some of which I'd seen, most of which I hadn't. But every walk of life, every class of life, I don't know how long it took her to compile the video. But if you've ever wondered what real people really looked like back when the world was black and white, as far as we're concerned, right? Because that's the only way we get to see it. Well, some of the stuff that she found is tinted. So it's not just black and white. It's really extraordinary. And it's a lot of fun to watch. And I just found that the inclusivity was just a joy to get a chance to see. So I've linked out to Madison's channel and those videos in the show notes for you. I also wanted to let you know that if you listen to the podcast on the app, we're testing this week to see if there's a wallpaper attached as an extra to this episode. So let us know if it worked or not. You can contact Heather at craftlit.com and give us a heads up. Or if you're on Patreon, you can message us there or on the Discord server. And by the time this posts, we will have done the second movie night for Patreon patrons. This time, everybody voted. We're doing A Face in the Crowd, which is an Andy Griffiths movie. And it's just chilling. And I cannot wait for everyone to see it. We are going to be changing the Patreon levels, if not this week, then very soon. So I'll have more for you on that as well coming up. And if you listen to the end, I will announce the winner of Easy Knits for Beautiful Yarns by Toby Roxanne Barna. Very exciting. And I think that's it. All right. Excellent. Let's get to the book. Today I have 2 more chapters for you, chapter 18 and 19. Today's end is not so much a cliffhanger as it is, I think, end of Act 1 for the book. And it's a perfect place to stop since I'm going to be gone for a week. And when I come back, we will pick up with what is functionally the beginning of Act 2. Things to know for today's chapters. First, chapter 18 is going to pick up exactly where we left off. D'Artagnan has just let Constance know that he overheard her entire conversation with her husband, the twit. Oh, he continues to be a twit in today's chapters. And in fact, I named today's episode after Constance will call him a ninny in this chapter. And I just love that because not only does it say ninny in the Victorian translation, but it also says ninny in the newer, more modern translation as well. And I just think ninny is a word that needs more usage. There are plenty of people, I think, embody ninnicity, ninniness in the world right now. And it made me giggle. Towards the end of chapter 18, you're going to hear a reference to the ear of Dionysus. And I was so relieved to find that the author of the modern translation put a footnote in, or an annotation in, for what this is. I'm just going to read it to you because I don't think I could sum it up any more briefly. The ear of Dionysus is an artificial limestone cave carved out of a hillside in Syracuse, Sicily. Possibly it was an old quarry, about 75 feet high and 200 feet deep, tapered at the top, giving it excellent acoustics. The name, which was coined by the painter Caravaggio, may refer to a local legend that Dionysus the Elder, tyrant of Syracuse from 405 to 367 BC, kept prisoners in there and eavesdropped on their conversations because the acoustics were so good. So, I don't know about that. Anybody been there? Ear of Dionysus? I would love to hear if it really works. Still. Okay, in chapter 19, there are a couple of things. One is just, it's helpful if you know something, and two are jokes. So the first one is the Forest of Bondy. It was about 10 miles northeast of Paris. It was known as a place where thieves and bandits and bad guys hung out. So highwaymen would have been there. Not a great place to ride through at night, for example. Then the two jokes. We know how Aramis is presenting himself as being someone who is learning to, or perhaps someday, maybe possibly going into seminary and going into the church. However, he hasn't done that yet, although he presents a very pious front and talks a lot about the learning that he is doing. He today mentions having some writing that he needed to do, or something that happened with chapter 18 in a book by St. Augustine. He refers to it as though there is only one chapter 18 in any St. Augustine book, when in fact 21 out of the 22 books that St. Augustine wrote have a chapter 18 in them. So he's just making stuff up because nobody's going to call him on it because nobody else would know. So that's number one. The second is, actually, I think this saint has turned up on the podcast before, although I didn't know this bit. St. John Chrysostom, he was AD 347 to 407. He was an archbishop in Constantinople and, a big mucky muck in the church. His Greek surname means golden mouth. And people think that that was kind of a testament to how good he was at sermons and sermonizing. So you won't actually hear anybody talking about Chrysostom. They will instead be talking about golden mouth, a reference to Chrysostom, who was supposed to have been such a great speaker. All right. Let's listen to Alexandre Dumas, chapters 18 and 19 of The Three Musketeers. And if you are listening to an alternate version, you can flip back on at 50 minutes and 43 seconds and pick up where we leave off at the end of chapter 19. All right, here we go.
Chapter 18 of the D'Artagnan Romances, Volume 1, The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas, translated by William Robson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Lover and Husband. "Ah, madame," said D'Artagnan, entering by the door which the young woman opened for him, "allow me to tell you that you have a bad sort of a husband." "You have, then, overheard our conversation?" asked Madame Bonacieux, eagerly and looking at D'Artagnan with disquiet. "The whole." "But how? My God!" "By a mode of proceeding known to myself, and by which I likewise overheard the more animated conversation which he had with the cardinal's police." And what did you understand by what we said?" "1,000 things. In the first place, that unfortunately your husband is a simpleton and a fool. In the next place, you are in trouble, of which I am very glad, as it gives me an opportunity to place myself at your service, and God knows I am ready to throw myself into the fire for you. Finally, that the Queen wants a brave, intelligent, devoted man to make a journey to London for her. I have at least 2 of the 3 qualities you stand in need of, and here I am." Madame Bonacieux made no reply, but her heart beat with joy, and secret hope shone in her eyes. "And what guarantee will you give me," asked she, "if I consent to confide this message to you?" "My love for you. Speak, command. What is to be done?" My God, murmured the young woman. "Ought I to confide such a secret to you, monsieur? You are almost a boy." "I see that you require someone to answer for me." "I admit that would reassure me greatly." "Do you know Athos?" "No." "Porthos?" "No." "Aramis?" "No. Who are these gentlemen?" "3 of the king's Musketeers. Do you know Monsieur de Tréville, their captain?" "Oh, yes, him. I know him, not personally, but from having heard the Queen speak of him more than once as a brave and loyal gentleman." "You do not fear lest he should betray you to the cardinal?" "Oh, no, certainly not." "Well, reveal your secret to him, and ask him whether, however important, however valuable, however terrible it may be, you may not confide it to me." "But this secret is not mine, and I cannot reveal it in this manner." "You were about to confide it to Monsieur Bonacieux," said D'Artagnan, with chagrin. "As one confides a letter to the hollow of a tree, to the wing of a pigeon, to the collar of a dog." "And yet me? You see plainly that I love you." "You say so." "I am an honorable man." "You say so." "I am a gallant fellow." "I believe it." "I am brave." "Oh, I am sure of that." "Then put me to the proof." Madame Bonacieux looked at the young man, restrained for a minute by a last hesitation, but there was such an ardor in his eyes, such persuasion in his voice, that she felt herself constrained to confide in him. Besides, she found herself in circumstances where everything must be risked for the sake of everything. The queen might be as much injured by too much reticence as by too much confidence, and, let us admit it, the involuntary sentiment which she felt for her young protector decided her to speak. "Listen," said she, "I yield to your protestations, I yield to your assurances, but I swear to you before God who hears us, that if you betray me and my enemies pardon me, I will kill myself, while accusing you of my death." "And I swear to you before God, madame," said D'Artagnan, "that if I am taken while accomplishing the orders you give me, I will die sooner than do anything that may compromise anyone." Then the young woman confided in him the terrible secret of which chance had already communicated to him a part in front of the Samaritan. This was their mutual declaration of love. D'Artagnan was radiant with joy and pride. This secret which he possessed, this woman whom he loved, confidence and love made him a giant. "I go," said he. "I go at once." "How? You will go?" said Madame Bonacieux. "And your regiment, your captain?" "By my soul, you had made me forget all that, dear Constance. Yes, you are right. A furlough is needful." "Still another obstacle," murmured Madame Bonacieux sorrowfully. "As to that," cried D'Artagnan after a moment of reflection, "I shall surmount it, be assured." "How so?" I will go this very evening to Treville, whom I will request to ask this favor for me of his brother-in-law, Monsieur Dessessart." "But another thing?" "What?" asked D'Artagnan, seeing that Madame Bonacieux hesitated to continue. "You have perhaps no money?" "Perhaps is too much," said D'Artagnan, smiling. "Then," replied Madame Bonacieux, opening a cupboard and taking from it the very bag which a half-hour before her husband had caressed so affectionately, "take this bag." "The cardinal's?" cried D'Artagnan, breaking into a loud laugh, he having heard, as may be remembered, thanks to the broken boards, every syllable of the conversation between the mercer and his wife. "The cardinal's," replied Madame Bonacieux. "You see, it makes a very respectable appearance." "Pardieu!" cried D'Artagnan. "It will be a double amusing affair to save the queen with the cardinal's money." "You are an amiable and charming young man," said Madame Bonacieux. "Be assured you will not find Her Majesty ungrateful." "Oh, I am already grandly recompensed," cried D'Artagnan. "I love you. You permit me to tell you that I do. That is already more happiness than I dared to hope." "Silence!" said Madame Bonacieux, starting. "What?" "Someone is talking in the street." "It is the voice of—" "Of my husband! Yes, I recognize it." D'Artagnan ran to the door and pushed the bolt. "He shall not come in before I am gone," said he. "And when I am gone, you can open it to him." "But I ought to be gone too, and the disappearance of his money. How am I to justify it if I am here?" "You are right. We must go out." "Go out? How? He will see us if we go out." "Then you must come up into my room." "Ah," said Madame Bonacieux, "you speak that in a tone that frightens me." Madame Bonacieux pronounced these words with tears in her eyes. D'Artagnan saw those tears, and, much disturbed, softened. He threw himself at her feet. "With me you will be as safe as in a temple. I give you my word of a gentleman." "Let us go," said she. "I place full confidence in you, my friend." D'Artagnan drew back the bolt with precaution, and both, light as shadows, glided through the interior door into the passage, ascended the stairs as quietly as possible, and entered D'Artagnan's chambers. Once there, for greater security, the young man barricaded the door. They both approached the window, and through a slit in the shutter they saw Bonacieux talking with a man in a cloak. At the sight of this man, D'Artagnan started, and half drawing his sword, sprang toward the door. It was the man of Meung. "What are you going to do?" cried Madame Bonacieux. "You will ruin us all." "But I have sworn to kill that man," said D'Artagnan. "Your life is devoted from this moment, and does not belong to you. In the name of the queen, I forbid you to throw yourself into any peril which is foreign to that of your journey." "And do you command nothing in your own name?" "In my name," said Madame Bonacieux with great emotion. "In my name I beg you. But listen, they appear to be speaking of me." D'Artagnan drew near the window and lent his ear. Bonacieux had opened his door, and seeing the apartment, had returned to the man in the cloak whom he had left alone for an instant. "She is gone," said he. "She must have returned to the Louvre." "You are sure," replied the stranger, "that she did not suspect the intentions with which you went out?" "No," replied Bonacieux with a self-sufficient air. "She is too superficial a woman." "Is the young guardsman at home?" "I do not think he is. As you see, his shutter is closed, and you can see no light shine through the chinks of the shutters." "All the same, it is well to be certain." "How so?" "By knocking at his door. Go." I will ask his servant. Bonacieux re-entered the house, passed through the same door that had afforded a passage for the two fugitives, went up to D'Artagnan's door and knocked. No one answered. Porthos, in order to make a greater display, had that evening borrowed Planchet. As to D'Artagnan, he took care not to give the least sign of existence. The moment the hand of Bonacieux sounded on the door, the two young people felt their hearts bound within them. "There is nobody within," said Bonacieux. "Never mind. Let us return to your apartment. We shall be safer there than in the doorway."
"Ah, my God," whispered Madame Bonacieux, "we shall hear no more?"
"On the contrary," said D'Artagnan, "we shall hear better." D'Artagnan raised the 3 or 4 boards which made his chamber another ear of Dionysius, spread a carpet on the floor, went upon his knees, and made a sign to Madame Bonacieux to stoop as he did toward the opening. "You are sure there is nobody there?" said the stranger. "I will answer for it," said Bonacieux. "And you think that your wife has returned to the Louvre?" "Without speaking to anyone but yourself?" "I am sure of it." "This is an important point. Do you understand?" "Then the news I brought you is of value?" "The greatest, my dear Bonacieux. I don't conceal this from you." "Then the cardinal will be pleased with me?" "I have no doubt of it." "The great cardinal?" "Are you sure, in her conversation with you, that your wife mentioned no names?" "I think not." "She did not name Madame de Chevreuse, the Duke of Buckingham, or Madame de Verney?" "No, she only told me she wished to send me to London to serve the interests of an illustrious personage."
"The traitor!"
murmured Madame Bonacieux. "Silence!" said D'Artagnan, taking her hand, which, without thinking of it, she abandoned to him. "Never mind," continued the man in the cloak. "You were a fool not to have pretended to accept the mission. You would then be in present possession of the letter. The state which is now threatened would be safe. And you?"
"And I?"
"Well, you. The cardinal would have given you letters of nobility."
"Did he tell you so?"
"Yes, I know that he meant to afford you that agreeable surprise."
"Be satisfied," replied Bonacieux. "My wife adores me, and there is yet time."
"The ninny,"
murmured Madame Bonacieux.
"Silence,"
said D'Artagnan, pressing her hand more closely. "How is there still time?" asked the man in the cloak.
"I go to the Louvre. I ask for Madame Bonacieux. I say that I have reflected. I renew the affair. I obtain the letter, and I run directly to the cardinal."
"Well, go quickly. I will return soon to learn the result of your trip." The stranger went out.
"Infamous!"
said Madame Bonacieux, addressing this epithet to her husband. "Silence!" said D'Artagnan, pressing her hand still more warmly. A terrible howling interrupted these reflections of D'Artagnan and Madame Bonacieux. It was her husband, who had discovered the disappearance of the money bag, and was crying, "Thieves!"
"Oh, my God!"
cried Madame Bonacieux.
"He will rouse the whole quarter."
Bonacieux called a long time, but as such cries, on account of their frequency, brought nobody in the Rue des Fossoyeurs, and as lately the mercer's house had a bad name, finding that nobody came, he went out continuing to call, his voice being heard fainter and fainter as he went in the direction of the Rue de Bac.
"Now he is gone. It is your turn to get out,"
said Madame Bonacieux.
"Courage, my friend, but above all, prudence, and think what you owe to the queen."
"To her and to you," cried D'Artagnan. "Be satisfied, beautiful Constance.
I shall become worthy of her gratitude, but I shall likewise return worthy of your love."
The young woman only replied by the beautiful glow which mounted to her cheeks. A few seconds afterward, D'Artagnan also went out enveloped in a large cloak, which ill concealed the sheath of a long sword. Madame Bonacieux followed him with her eyes, with that long, fond look with which she had turned the angle of the street. She fell on her knees, and clasping her hands, "Oh, my God," cried she, "protect the queen! Protect me!" End of chapter 18. Recording by John Van Stan. Savannah, Georgia. Chapter 19 of the D'Artagnan Romances, Volume 1, The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas, translated by William Robson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Plan of Campaign. D'Artagnan went straight to Monsieur de Tréville's. He had reflected that in a few minutes the cardinal would be warned by this cursed stranger, who appeared to be his agent, and he judged with reason he had not a moment to lose. The heart of the young man overflowed with joy. An opportunity presented itself to him in which there would be at the same time glory to be acquired and money to be gained. And as far as higher encouragement, it brought him into close intimacy with a woman he adored. This chance did then, for him, at once more than he would have dared to ask of Providence. Monsieur de Tréville was in his saloon with his habitual court of gentlemen. D'Artagnan, who was known as a familiar of the house, went straight to his office and sent word that he wished to see him on something of importance. D'Artagnan had been there scarcely 5 minutes when Monsieur de Tréville entered. At the first glance, and by the joy which was painted on his countenance, the worthy captain plainly perceived that something new was on foot. All the way along, D'Artagnan had been consulting with himself whether he should place confidence in Monsieur de Tréville, or whether he should only ask him to give him carte blanche for some secret affair. But Monsieur de Tréville had always been so thoroughly his friend, had always been so devoted to the king and queen, and hated the cardinal so cordially, that the young man resolved to tell him everything.
"Did you ask for me, my good friend?"
said Monsieur de Tréville.
"Yes, monsieur," said D'Artagnan, lowering his voice. "And you will pardon me, I hope, for having disturbed you when you know the importance of my business." "Speak, then. I am all attention." "It concerns nothing less," said D'Artagnan, "than the honor, perhaps the life, of the queen." "What did you say?" asked Monsieur de Tréville, glancing round to see if they were surely alone, and then fixing his questioning look upon D'Artagnan. "I say, monsieur, that chance has rendered me master of a secret." "Which you will guard, I hope, young man, as your life." "But which I must impart to you, monsieur, for you alone can assist me in the mission I have just received from Her Majesty." "Is this secret your own?" "No, monsieur. It is Her Majesty's." "Are you authorized by Her Majesty to communicate it to me?" "No, monsieur, for on the contrary, I am desired to preserve the profoundest mystery." "Why, then, are you about to betray it to me?" "Because, as I said, without you I can do nothing, and I am afraid you will refuse me the favor I have come to ask, if you do not know to what end I ask it." "Keep your secret, young man, and tell me what you wish." "I wish you to obtain for me, from Monsieur Dessessart, leave of absence for 15 days." "When?" "This very night." "You leave Paris?" "I am going on a mission." "May you tell me whither?" "To London." "Has anyone an interest in preventing your arrival there?" "The cardinal, I believe, would give the world to prevent my success." "And you are going alone?" "I am going alone." "In that case, you will not get beyond Bondy. I tell you so by the faith of a de Tréville." "How so?" "You will be assassinated." "And I shall die in the performance of my duty." "But your mission will not be accomplished."
"That is true," replied D'Artagnan.
"Believe me," continued Tréville, "in enterprises of this kind, in order that one may arrive, 4 must set out."
"Ah, you are right, monsieur," said D'Artagnan. "But you know Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, and you know if I can dispose of them."
"Without confiding to them the secret which I am not willing to know?"
"We are sworn once for all to implicit confidence and devotedness against all proof. Besides, you can tell them that you have full confidence in me, and they will not be more incredulous than you."
"I can send to each of them leave of absence for 15 days. That is all. To Athos, whose wound still makes him suffer, to go to the waters of Forges. To Porthos and Aramis, to accompany their friend, whom they are not willing to abandon in such a painful condition. Sending their leave of absence will be proof enough that I authorize their journey."
"Thanks, monsieur. You are 100 times too good."
"Begone, then. Find them instantly, and let all be done tonight. Ha! But first, write your request to Dessessart. Perhaps you had a spy at your heels, and your visit, if it should ever be known to the cardinal, will thus seem legitimate."
D'Artagnan drew up his request, and Monsieur de Tréville, on receiving it, assured him that by 2 o'clock in the morning the 4 leaves of absence should be at the respective domiciles of the travelers. "Have the goodness to send mine to Athos's residence. I should dread some disagreeable encounter if I were to go home."
"Be easy. Adieu, and a prosperous voyage. Apropos,"
said Monsieur de Tréville, calling him back. D'Artagnan returned.
"Have you any money?"
D'Artagnan tapped the bag he had in his pocket.
"Enough?"
asked Monsieur de Tréville. 300 pistoles.
"Oh, plenty. That would carry you to the end of the world. Begone, then."
D'Artagnan saluted Monsieur de Tréville, who held out his hand to him. D'Artagnan pressed it with a respect mixed with gratitude. Since his first arrival at Paris, he had had constant occasion to honor this excellent man, whom he had always found worthy, loyal, and great. His first visit was to Aramis, at whose residence he had not been since the famous evening on which he had followed Madame Bonacieux. Still further, he had seldom seen the young Musketeer, but every time he had seen him, he had remarked a deep sadness imprinted on his countenance. This evening especially, Aramis was melancholy and thoughtful. D'Artagnan asked some questions about this prolonged melancholy. Aramis pleaded as his excuse a commentary upon the 18th chapter of St. Augustine, which he was forced to write in Latin for the following week, and which preoccupied him a good deal. After the two friends had been chatting a few moments, a servant from Monsieur de Tréville entered, bringing a sealed packet.
"What is that?"
asked Aramis. "The leave of absence Monsieur has asked for," replied the lackey.
"For me? I have asked for no leave of absence."
"Hold your tongue and take it," said D'Artagnan. "And you, my friend, there is a demi-pistole for your trouble. You will tell Monsieur de Tréville that Monsieur Aramis is very much obliged to him. Go." The lackey bowed to the ground and departed.
"What does all this mean?"
asked Aramis. "Pack up all you want for a journey of a fortnight, and follow me."
"But I cannot leave Paris just now without knowing."
Aramis stopped. "What has become of her? I suppose you mean," continued D'Artagnan.
"Because of whom?"
replied Aramis. "Oh, the woman who was here, the woman with the embroidered handkerchief."
"Who told you there was a woman here?"
replied Aramis, becoming as pale as death. "I saw her."
"And you know who she is?"
"I believe I can guess at least."
"Listen," said Aramis. "Since you appear to know so many things, can you tell me what is become of that woman?"
"I presume that she has returned to Tours."
"To Tours? Yes, that may be. You evidently know her. But why did she return to Tours without telling me anything?
Because she was in fear of being arrested.
Why has she not written to me then?
Because she was afraid of compromising you.
D'Artagnan, you restore me to life,
cried Aramis.
I fancied myself despised, betrayed. I was so delighted to see her again. I could not have believed she would risk her liberty for me. And yet, for what other cause could she have returned to Paris?
For the cause which today takes us to England.
And what is this cause?
Demanded Aramis. Oh, you'll know it someday, Aramis, but at present I must imitate the discretion of the doctor's niece. Aramis smiled as he remembered the tale he had told his friends on a certain evening.
Well, then, since she has left Paris, and you are sure of it, D'Artagnan, nothing prevents me, and I am ready to follow you. You say we are going
to see Athos now, and if you will come thither, I beg you to make haste, for we have lost much time already. Apropos, inform Bazin.
Will Bazin go with us?
Asked Aramis. Perhaps so. At all events, it is best that he should follow us to Athos. Aramis called Bazin, and after having ordered him to join them at Athos's residence, said, "Let us go then," at the same time taking his cloak, sword, and 3 pistols, opening uselessly 2 or 3 drawers to see if he could not find stray coin. When well assured the search was superfluous, he followed D'Artagnan, wondering to himself how this young guardsman should know so well who the lady was to whom he had given hospitality, and that he should know better than himself what had become of her. Only as they went out, Aramis placed his hand upon the arm of D'Artagnan, and looking at him earnestly, "You have not spoken of this lady?" said he. "To nobody in the world." "Not even to Athos or Porthos?" "I have not breathed a syllable to them." "Good enough." Tranquil on this point, Aramis continued his way with D'Artagnan, and both soon arrived at Athos's dwelling. They found him holding his leave of absence in one hand, and Monsieur de Tréville's note in the other. "Can you explain to me what signify this leave of absence and this letter which I have just received?" said the astonished Athos. "My dear Athos, I wish, as your health absolutely requires it, that you should rest for a fortnight. Go then and take the waters of Forges, or any that may be more agreeable to you, and recuperate yourself as quickly as possible. Yours affectionate, de Tréville." "Well, this leave of absence and that letter mean that you must follow me, Athos." "To the waters of Forges?" "There or elsewhere." "In the king's service?" "Either the king's or the queen's. Are we not their majesties' servants?" At that moment Porthos entered.
"Pardieu,"
said he,
"here is a strange thing. Since when, I wonder, in the Musketeers did they grant men leave of absence without their asking for it?"
"Since," said D'Artagnan, "they have friends who ask it for them."
"Ah, ha, ha!" said Porthos. "It appears there's something fresh here."
"Yes, we are going," said Aramis.
"To what country?"
demanded Porthos. "My faith, I don't know much about it," said Athos. "Ask D'Artagnan." "To London, gentlemen," said D'Artagnan.
"To London?"
cried Porthos.
"And what the devil are we going to do in London?"
"That is what I am not at liberty to tell you, gentlemen. You must trust to me."
"But in order to go to London,"
asked Porthos,
"money is needed, and I have none."
"Nor I," said Aramis. "Nor I," said Athos. "I have," replied D'Artagnan, pulling out his treasure from his pockets and placing it on the table. "There are in this bag 300 pistoles. Let each take 75. That is enough to take us to London and back. Besides, make yourselves easy. we shall not all arrive at London.
Why so?
Because in all probability, some of us will be left on the road.
Is this, then, a campaign upon which we are now entering?
One of the most dangerous kind. I give you notice.
Ah, but if we do risk being killed, said Porthos, at least I should like to know what for.
You would be all the wiser, said Athos.
And yet,
said Aramis,
I am somewhat of Porthos's opinion.
Is the king accustomed to give you such reasons? No, he says to you jauntily, Gentlemen, there is fighting going on in Gascony or in Flanders. Go and fight, and you go there. Why, you need give yourselves no more uneasiness about this.
D'Artagnan is right, said Athos.
Here are our 3 leaves of absence which come from Monsieur de Tréville, and here are 300 pistoles, which came from I don't know where. So let us go and get killed where we are told to go. Is life worth the trouble of so many questions? D'Artagnan, I am ready to follow you.
And I also,
said Porthos.
And I also, said Aramis. And indeed, I am not sorry to quit Paris. I had need of distraction.
Well, you will have distractions enough, gentlemen, be assured, said D'Artagnan. And now, when are we to go? asked Athos.
Immediately, replied D'Artagnan. We have not a minute to lose. Hello, Grimaud, Planchet, Mousqueton, Bazin, cried the 4 young men, calling their lackeys. Clean my boots and fetch the horses from the hotel.
Each Musketeer was accustomed to leave at the general hotel, as at a barrack. His own horse and that of his lackey, Planchet, Grimaud, Mousqueton, and Bazin, set off at full speed.
Now, let us lay down the plan of campaign, said Porthos. Where do we go first?
To Calais, said D'Artagnan. That is the most direct line to London.
Well, said Porthos, this is my advice.
Speak.
4 men traveling together would be suspected. D'Artagnan will give each of us his instructions. I will go by the way of Boulogne to clear the way. Athos will set out 2 hours after, by that of Amiens. Aramis will follow us by that of Noyon. As to D'Artagnan, he will go by what route he thinks is best, in Planchet's clothes, while Planchet will follow us like D'Artagnan in the uniform of the guards.
Gentlemen, said Athos, my opinion is that it is not proper to allow lackeys to have anything to do in such an affair. A secret may by chance be betrayed by gentlemen, but it is almost always sold by lackeys. Porthos' plan appears to me to be impracticable, said D'Artagnan, inasmuch as I am myself ignorant of what instructions I can give you. I am the bearer of a letter, that is all. I have not, and I cannot make 3 copies of that letter because it is sealed. We must then, as it appears to me, travel in company. This letter is here, in this pocket. And he pointed to the pocket which contained the letter. If I should be killed, one of you must take it and continue the route. If he be killed, it will be another's turn, and so on, provided a single one arrives. That is all that is required. Bravo, D'Artagnan. Your opinion is mine, cried Athos. Besides, we must be consistent. I am going to take the waters. You will accompany me. Instead of taking the waters of Forges, I go and take sea waters. I am free to do so. If anyone wishes to stop us, I will show Monsieur de Tréville's letter, and you will show your leaves of absence. If we are attacked, we will defend ourselves. If we are tried, we will stoutly maintain that we were only anxious to dip ourselves a certain number of times in the sea. They would have an easy bargain of 4 isolated men, whereas 4 men together make a troop. We will arm our 4 lackeys with pistols and musketoons. If they send an army out against us, we will give battle, and the survivor, as D'Artagnan says, will carry the letter.
Well said, cried Aramis. You don't often speak, Athos, but when you do speak, it is like St. John of the Golden Mouth. I agree to Athos's plan. And you, Porthos? I agree to it too, said Porthos. If D'Artagnan approves of it, D'Artagnan, being the bearer of the letter, is naturally the head of the enterprise. Let him decide, and we will execute.
Well, said D'Artagnan, I decide that we should adopt Athos's plan, and that we set off in half an hour.
Agreed,
shouted the 3 Musketeers in chorus. Each one, stretching out his hand to the bag, took his 75 pistoles and made his preparations to set out at the time appointed. End of chapter 19, recording by John Van Stan, Savannah, Georgia.
In chapter 18, I kind of felt like when Bonacieux said, "My wife loves me," there was a part of me that thought, you, sir, are the reason why facepalm emojis were invented. Because that line, I was just like, oh, dude, you do not have a clue. I'm sure you picked up that the stranger who he's talking to is Rochefort, who is the man from Meung. And yeah, he's a ninny. I know it seems ridiculous. D'Artagnan and Constance's relationship, it will continue to seem rather ridiculous. I think the best thing to keep in mind is that she's really hot and he's really hot, and he's really doing her a solid, and her husband is a ninny. So it's definitely not a British book. It is definitely a French book. So chapter 19, I thought, again, it was really interesting when Tréville was like, is it your secret to tell me with D'Artagnan? And D'Artagnan's all, no. Well then, shut it. I also thought it was a really slick way to get 3 Musketeers to go with D'Artagnan to come up with an excuse that made sense. I also loved that D'Artagnan was like, not even a thought, not a pause. It was, I've got 300 pistoles, divide that up 4 ways. That's 75 pistoles for each of us. Take yours. Have at it. I also thought it was kind of interesting that there is that one throwaway reference that, you know, this is a thing we're going to be doing and not all of us will make it back. And I thought, I wonder if that's Alexandre Dumas just being a really, really good writer of serialized adventure stories. Like, oh, well, now we don't know. Maybe somebody's going to die. Or if this was Dumas didn't know where he was going with it because it was serialized and maybe one of them would die and he didn't know either. I have no idea, but either way, I thought it was kind of interesting that little prick up your ears moment, like, ooh, something's happening. Smart. Oh, I also forgot to bring up before the chapter. Well, actually, it might have just thrown everything off. Anyway, there's a reference to a previous section of the book where Aramis says, okay, why are we going to England? And D'Artagnan says, I can't tell you. And D'Artagnan says, oh, you'll know it someday, Aramis, but at present I must imitate the discretion of the doctor's niece. And you may remember that in previous chapters, Aramis had to try and explain the woman with the embroidered handkerchief and said she was the niece of a theologian, a doctor. And that's the discretion, the zipped lip that D'Artagnan is referencing. And it makes Aramis smile. All right, I promised that I would give you the name of the winner of our book for this month's raffle. And the winner is Jennifer G. By this time, you should have gotten an email from me confirming an address so that I can ship this out to you before I head off to the beach. And congratulations. I think we're going to have another raffle in August. August is getting kind of tricky, actually. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do a raffle in August. I'll see. In the meantime, I know that a lot of CraftLit listeners come here to escape modern life and things that are happening in our modern world. And I certainly try and do my best to keep this modernity-free zone as much as possible. So please stop listening now if you don't want to hear any references to things that are going on in the world right now. But I have a question, I guess, for people who are fans of Margaret Atwood and books like The Handmaid's Tale. So go ahead and have a great day. If you aren't interested, if you are, please keep listening. So before I started recording this morning, as I was getting ready, I was listening to the news and I heard RFK Jr.'s COVID Jewish connection, that conspiracy theory that he's making. I am horrified. I am disgusted. I know his family is as well. Please, when you hear ridiculous, crazy things, shut them down. It is not enough for us to know in our own minds and hearts what is true and right and good. You have to now be anti-stupid, anti-evil. I think anything that's going to get people killed, kind of evil. So there's that, which I found very, very troubling and upsetting. The second thing, and this is actually the question. I don't know if you've heard what's happened in Tennessee, but Tennessee's Attorney General has already received the health records of anybody who was seeking transgendered medical care. My question is this: how does this not violate HIPAA? How is this possible? And then the follow-up is, I also just heard that I think 19 states are now not only looking at this kind of thing that Tennessee did, but they are now their attorneys general are actively trying to get medical records of women who have left those states to get abortions, to hunt those women down. To me, this has crossed the line so far over the line into Handmaid's Tale zone that I am quite literally sick to my stomach. And that's why I just couldn't not bring it up here. If anyone has an answer to what the heck is going on and how this does or does not violate HIPAA, please call 206-350-1642. If you call with information that you would like me to share on an episode, let me know. Otherwise, I will not play any of those calls. You can also email heather@craftlit.com. Or if you're on Patreon and our Discord server, you can ping me there. I'm just horrified. The corollary, of course, to all of this is, what can we do? If there is anything that anyone knows that we can do to fight this kind of hideous behavior, and they're all men. I'm sorry. We have a lot of CraftLit men, and our CraftLit men are not these people. And I'm just, oh my good grief. I feel so privileged and lucky that I never had to make a decision like whether or not to have an abortion. But my God, it is unbelievable how a small minority of zealots have cowed the rest of us. And I know that there are some Jewish organizations and lawyers who are now suing to overturn as much as they can, because if your basis for your anti-abortion policies and laws is religion, then we have a problem, because there are plenty of religions that do not have an issue with abortion, especially in cases of rape, incest, or the safety of the mother. Jews are very clear. The mother takes precedence over a fetus. A fetus can't feed the other kids. Mother can. So, okay, I'm done. please let me know. I feel inept. I feel helpless. I feel disheartened. I feel hated. And I feel like even though I feel very alone right now, I know I am not alone. And yet I just don't know what to do. So let me know. And take care of yourself. Take care of everybody else. As Daily Beans says, vote blue over Q. And take care of yourself. Be well. And I'll talk to you when we get back from the beach. And maybe by then the world will be a better and saner place. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.
A big thanks to all the CraftLit listeners who support the show by being a premium audio member via craftlit.com/premium or via patreon.com/craftlit. Your support for the show is what's kept us going since 2006. If you feel like getting free audio pretty much every week, please consider supporting the show by heading over to patreon.com/craftlit and pledging what you feel the show is worth to you. If you can't support the show that way, consider leaving a review at iTunes or at our facebook.com/craftlit page, or follow @craftlit on Twitter and share the show with your followers too. And remember, if your hands are too busy to pick up a book, at least you can turn one on.